Hello everyone and welcome back. It's been getting hot out there, so drink some water. Today we're going to be getting into the part 2 of Andrew Tate versus Bonnie Blue. Now the last one was a little crazy, a little off the wall. Let's just let it continue. If you've been appreciating the content, please consider subscribing as it does help a lot. Not much else to say, let's get into this. So where we left off was talking about feminism and where society has failed. Now I went ahead a little bit because there's a lot of talk in between where we stopped and here. There's just a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. So we're going to pick it up here and kind of pick up on the finer points of the conversation as it continues.
Let's have kids. Let's just all live off the government. This is feminism. Because you don't live off the government if you have a husband. They don't want husbands. And they don't want husbands. Women want to get married, but they don't want husbands. They want to get married like Sex in the City style. You know, like you fuck a million men, then you get married to some really rich guy who lets you do whatever you want. Then you have an affair with the gardener, and then you spend all his money, and then somehow you're still the victim. That's the kind of marriage they want.
That's
they
most
don't
women's
want
dream.
That's right. They don't actually want to be wives, because wives are obedient, and wives are quiet, and wives listen. All women say this. I want to marry you, I want to marry you. Wait till you're in an argument with them and read their messages and go, this is why I will never marry you. This is why I will never marry you. I read their messages and they don't realize that they've ruined their chance forever. I cannot marry you because of how you talk. A wife doesn't do this. I've told you to be quiet 3 times.
What are you going to do?
Here you are.
Go and get on that naughty corner.
That's right.
That naughty step.
So women don't want to be wives. They want to just get married, which means that the whole familiar structure is broken. Once the family structure is broken, who has to take the place? Government. Think about this. In Romania, we have no mental health care. Why are there no mental people or out in the streets? Family. We have no forced child support. Why are women not starving to death? Family. We have no disability care. Why are people not sitting on the streets with no legs? Family. Family does so much work. In the West, we have no family. So the government has to come along and offer mental health care, disability care, forced child support. The government has to do it because of feminism. So what I'm saying is if women don't want to get married to men anymore and they all want to listen to the government, then the government can raise kids. Fine. Rob, you put 4 women in front of me, all different flavors. You give me Indian, Chinese, black, white, whatever. And you say you all and have a kid out of all of them and they'll all be raised on council estates around England. I'd say no problem. Why not?
So his conversation alludes from what kind of man these women are ending up with. So yes, the idea of a wifely characteristic is to be obedient. Okay, obedient to what? Are we automatically implying that a man is admirable then? Are we just assuming that? Or are we assuming that all men are admirable? It's not really the case, and it's hard to say that that's the common average for men in general. No, I don't think so. I think that people find reasons to listen to a version of authority that they respect. And I think that's kind of what you see in the household. Now, when it comes down to the government thing, you're talking about the government raising your children. Why do you think children are more malleable than ever? If you think that that's a good outcome, then you're contributing to the problem by thinking you're not. That part's a little crazy to me. You're allowing for a more malleable population, I guess, because the more kids that grow up in assisted single mother households, you're creating that population that's going to listen to maybe something that's more erratic or extreme than you want them to. And I don't think that that's the right move. I get the idea of the baby fall off or the birthing fall off. It's some pretty scary numbers, but come on. There's a lot of points in this conversation that are just being assumed or are being overlooked because we don't want to assess the risk as part of the conversation because it might prove us wrong, I think.
Why not? If they're real niggers, they'll survive.
You don't feel guilty. That's half your
that's your
child.
Why would I feel guilty?
Because that's your child. It's your DNA.
Of course. And if the woman's nice to me and says, Andrew, I'm tired of living in Runcorn.
But
can I come live in Dubai in a mansion? I'll say, of course, my dear.
But then
if she annoys me, if she's like, oh, I'm here in Dubai and you left me by myself and you're with all these other women, who are all these about? Then I'll be like, go back to Runcorn.
Take the kid off her.
No, I'm not going to take the kid off her. She can keep the kid.
But it's your DNA.
Yeah, of course. And my DNA is survivor DNA.
And that's like the joking way to talk around the idea of him being president, even though he just spoke on the idea of how important that is. But obviously, he's also only speaking on reference to the women that are obedient to him regardless of the lifestyle. My question to everybody is, do you think Andrew Tate is an admirable person? That's debatable. And it's debatable on what metric or scale you want to deem admirable. Could he be considered a masculine character? In some aspects, yes. Does that make him admirable? And does his decisions or the way that he live can be considered admirable? I think at the end of the day, if a woman is making a decision to have a child with a certain kind of man, either you didn't think that far ahead or women aren't engaging in sex with the idea of who's raising their child. I think that's the end all be all. That's literally where it starts and stops. So if you out there having sex and you out there being crazy and promiscuous, every single man is a possible father, regardless of the implementation of safe sex or the birth control. Because one, safe sex isn't always the case and birth control don't always work. I'm not trying to say that this is for the people that don't want to have children. It's on the basis that whether birth control or safe sex is even being applied, these are still the men you're picking. And obviously there's various studies that show that women on birth control and off birth control have differing interests of what they find attractive for men. So like there's the studies that display women on birth control being more attracted to less masculine men, and then women off birth control being more attracted to masculine men. It's interesting how that pans out, angular faces and structure, tone of voice, things like that. Let's just keep it going.
If you've got a proper wife, that other wife will take that
at least 5 of them will be real. Because I don't need the further 45. Look, it's survival of the fittest out here. This is how it works. This is how my brain works. But you're saying, I don't know why we're going to sit here and create the logic fail of pretending it is wrong for a government to raise the children when that was a man's job, when men have had all of their authority removed. You want us to have the responsibility of a woman, the responsibility of a family, the responsibility of children, the responsibilities with none of the authority. You can't tell a woman what to do. You can't tell her to be quiet. You can't tell your kids off. You can't tell her not to suck. You can't tell her not to go out with her friends. If you do any of that, it's emotionally coercive behavior. That's a criminal charge in England. Mm-hmm. If you tell your own wife not to go to the pub, you're the criminal.
Oh, you're so controlling.
That's right.
Let me do stuff.
But I'm still responsible? No. It looks like the government.
I'm a little curious about that criminal charge, if that's the case.
It has more power than me. So if you want to play this game and take all of my authority away as a man, you want to reduce me to nothing more than a tax slave. Well, then I'm going to play your game back at you. I have no authority, so I have no responsibility. I will look after children, and I will look after the women who give me absolute authority over their lives, who say, yes, sir, anything you say, sir, I trust what you believe in the world. I trust you're guiding us. I trust you to take care of us. Yes, sir. Those women are driving Bentleys currently, living in mansions currently. And the women who say, I don't want to listen to you, I want to do what I want, are currently in council houses. And I have kids with all of them. And I don't give a fuck. Because this is my masculine imperative, to impregnate. And when I die, no matter what you think of me, no matter what anyone thinks of me, no matter what anyone watches this, has a bad problem with me, whatever, I get to die with 100 children. I win. I had 100 kids. I was one of the most famous men on the planet, made hundreds of millions of dollars, spent a little time in jail, whatever. I win. Great life. Genghis Khan. There's men out there who go, oh no, I've got my 2 kids. That's enough. That's your choice. To me, it sounds like failure. Perma-failure. And the only reason they're doing that is because their women wouldn't give them more. Or they're afraid to have kids with another woman in case their woman finds out.
Yeah, but then you're also arguing the idea of quantity versus quality. And if you're trying to say that, well, if I have as many kids as possible, that doesn't mean that each child is coming up with the possibility of being a good child. And nor does that mean that it's increasing the chances. Because if you have more kids, that's more likely that one of them's better. Or how about the idea of having, the people with smaller knit families having 4 children or 3 children, and then dumping genuine investment into those kids, and then having the highest probability of all 3 coming out great. And then them moving on with the understanding of the importance of fathers. When you have a bunch of children, it's not very consistent that all of them are growing up with the idea that they knew why it was important for a dad to be present or a father or a man to be present. So that's a little wishy-washy there. But he is putting a good point with the hypothetical of why a lot of men are quietly quitting or whatever the phrase is nowadays. I think that's the common theme that we're seeing. It's like, yeah, that's the argument. It's like, if you're going to strip me of my authority in my own home, and you're going to strip me from my ability to be anything more than what the government dictates I can be, why should I do anything in return? When before I had the ability to secure a form of authority within my own household. Now, although not permitted by law, even though it's leaning that way where women often get more privilege in court, either by abuse or when it comes down to children, it's not really written in law, but there's a little bit of bias there, and we see it. When you provide that as the narrative to currently confront men with, why do you think it pushes some into the extreme end? They can't go the other way because you've made it impossible. So now you're in this situation where you have this as an outcome, and his narrative, although extreme and crazy to some, it makes sense for many men. And it's your fault thinking that you're going to be able to successfully subjugate a gender to such an extent. It's crazy.
No, yeah, innocent until proven guilty. Are you a rapist?
What do you really think? What do you think?
No, I think why would he? He gets pussy easy enough. Why go and cause drama for yourself?
Bonnie is the most based person. You know that you're probably one of the smartest women I've spoken to.
I think, why would someone like Andrew go and rape someone? He can get unlimited pussy. Why cause a headache for yourself? Why go and pay a lawyer? Why give more money to the government? He could just join my queue. I've seen him there multiple times.
Oh wait, I was with you till then. Bonnie's based. Bonnie understands the world very well.
Whoa.
I think that's why we kind of understand each other. She understands the world very well. Of course, I haven't raped anyone. What I did was not buy girls handbags who wanted handbags, and then they did what women do, which is cry.
They want attention and they want money.
Of course. They want attention and money. And everyone with a brain knows they want attention and money.
Did they cry, or was it the system that came for you first?
Well, this is the thing. When the system starts calling every single woman
I think
and
it's
promises
by
them money, and you've slept with a bunch of them, they only need to find one or two out of the 1,000, and then there you go. And then they can raise criminal charges on you, which is what they did to me. They call 1,000 women. They find a couple who want money or fame, and they get them to make lies up about you so that the government can attack you. This is my point by and large. This is why, if anyone's confused about my opinions on anything, I want you to understand men now, we are such second-class citizens. We have no authority. We have no autonomy. We have nothing left inside of us because we have no capability to even defend ourselves against heinous allegations which are raised in retrospect of action. We're expected to pay all the taxes. We're expected to build the roads. We're expected to go to work every day. We're expected to die in a ditch if the country needs defending. We're expected to stay on the boat when the boat is sinking. We're expected to do all of these things. But it turns out the government and women can wreck us by and large. We are nothing but slaves and serfs to the matriarchy now. And because we live in this matriarchal system where men are absolutely abused, nobody gives a shit about our mental health. Nobody gives a shit about our physical health. All we talk about is breast cancer. That's not even the top 10 cancers, I believe. I think prostate cancer's 10 times the amount. Nobody gives a f if men die. Nobody gives a f if we kill ourselves. Nobody cares if we do worse in school. Nobody cares most of us go to jail. They don't care about any of it. So we are slaves. So what I do as a slave is say, well, if I'm a slave here in this system, then I don't see why I need to be responsible enough to worry about paying for this kid, for example. If you're going to treat me like a and the government's going to come along like Big Daddy, is going to poison my woman's mind so she doesn't listen to me, is going to rape me in a divorce court.
I mean, he's going back to the same narrative that he had before. Yeah, I got it. Now, when it comes down to the importance of, if you're in a certain pocket of social media, I think that echo chamber is going to represent itself. I think if you're around certain circles, that information is also going to represent itself. And I think that there are people that care. There are people with men's mental health on their radar. Now, do they care enough to do anything? That's the argument. That's the conversation, because I feel like so many people rush to the aid of women that because we have that socially accepted norm that men can just assumingly take and endure everything, it's more of on the back burner. It's more of a a passenger seat type of thing, and it's not something that we even concern ourselves with. So I think the biggest part is because it's hard for men to be seen as a victim. And if men are universally harder to see as a victim, you're not going to invest in any problem, situation, crime, law plaguing against them. He brought up his allegations. Let's not get into the allegations. We saw the Diddy thing. We've seen other versions where women have weaponized the court against men as well. We've seen it in a broad scope. There's quite a bit there. But there's a point to his extent. If he's already in this position, how likely is it that he needs to forcefully secure sexual gratification? He has already displayed how many women have flocked to his scene, to his presence. To say that's the case, I don't know about that. Now, on the basis where it's someone who's not as appealing or has that as like that kind of audience, you know, when we saw the whole Bill Cosby thing, it doesn't really seem like the hot, attractive type. So that's questionable, right? And I think that you can kind of gauge in what scenario where it's more or less likely. You had the thing with like the Shannon Sharp thing. You had other demonstrations of men that naturally secure short-term fun, I guess you could say, short-term relationships with all kinds of women. A lot of them are on the scheme of getting something in return or acquiring something from it. And if that's not the case, and it was something that they thought was authentic, they later feel shame about what they did. And then they obviously go the legal route, because if they feel shame about an action that they follow through on, women will do quite a bit in the essence of feelings. What path that might lead them on is obviously going to be completely up to them. But at the end of the day, when those feelings are gone, it's hard for a lot of women to either feel confident or guilt about the thing that they pursued. If they felt guilt, well, what are they going to do? Lie about it, hide it, or play the victim? No, this was forced upon me in my innocence. No, you're not proud of it anymore. You're not in the feeling that drove that action anymore. So now you're trying to re-secure your consent. I think that it's these kind of women that have completely destroyed the seriousness of sexual assault on women in general. And it sucks for the women that have genuine and authentic stories, because you have bad actors like these that just take from that populace when they really are suffering. Instead, you just have a bunch of women that can't live with being a guilty piece of shit. So, because like I said, you got women out there that are true victims. Where's their empathy? Where's their consideration? Well, it's being watered down because of these bad actors, these terrible ass women who are trying to monopolize and monetize on their activities with wealthy men. Definitely rough. Let's keep it going.
It's going to throw me in jail based on false allegations. Then how about you pay for the fucking children? That's my view.
What do you think about that? Do you think like men are the lowest in society now?
I think men, if they speak out, they literally don't have a word against women nowadays. Especially if you there is a lot of men that get away with it, and that's terrible. But there's a lot of girls that just haven't got the right way, and the next day they cry. And I'm not saying that's all women. It does happen. It happens regardless. But like blaming Andrew for that, it's just girls that want attention. Those girls come forward like, oh my God, I'm the girl that Andrew Tate raped. Their Instagram will shoot through the roof. They'll get paid. They'll probably get some sort of clothing brand deal. Because, oh my God, it's women empowerment. Look, you spoke out against someone that's, so hated. They'll be credited, even though their stories are fake. They're the ones that will get praised.
100%. Our grandfathers got a woman. He didn't have to be rich. He didn't have to even be famous. He didn't have to be successful. He just had to be a man and do the most basic things. And she loved him and he loved her and they had a happy relationship. Our grandfathers got a woman for fuck all. Now, to get a woman who cares about you, you need to be one of the most famous, rich, well-known, drive a Lambo, this, X, Y, Z. The average man's fucking wrecked. Yeah. And the role of men in all of this is completely forgotten because nobody gives a about men. We're hypersexualizing women. And let's be honest, Bonnie is smart enough to monetize her own content. But most women who are promiscuous are not smart enough to monetize.
But isn't Bonnie part of the problem then?
Bonnie is a symptom of society. I don't want to say of the disease of society. I could, but she's a symptom. She's the end result of the society we have built, which is why it's hypocritical.
Which you think is degrading.
I'm living the best I can in the world that's already been built. I don't give a shit about changing the world. The world has given me the opportunity to do what I do and monetize from it. I'm going to do that.
You said you thought you were a positive role model.
No, but Rob.
Well, I am positive because you think of the day I fucked 1,000 men. If you was a rapist, would you go and find someone else? No, I've shared my location. Come and fuck me. Like, I'm reducing rape rates because when you have sex workers that are available and guys want to have sex, they want to breed, they want to, and if they can't find a girlfriend,
she's going on this whole therapeutic session thing again. But in reference to Andrew's point, I mean, technology did come in and sweep the board of this social comparative analysis that now we all run ourselves through. So women genuinely believe that they stand on these premises when they don't. And they think they can self-diagnose their value when they can't. It really set the stage for some bad mentalities. Is, I guess, one way to say it is bad mentalities, because when you have women who perceive their own value in whatever way or metric that they decide, they're going to assume what they deserve instead of just being a human being first and foremost. They're already thinking about what's supposed to be given to them. At what point is that a good decision? At what point is that supposed to be the way? And I think that just, one, first and foremost, now a man has to meet that without even knowing you. It's like, it's an uphill battle off the rip. I think the worst part about it is how far the mean has just shifted from what was the norm back in a few generations ago, where you had romance based off proximity, and the proximity dictated a lot of who you were going to end up with or what kind of relationships were formed. And so it was already within the basis of community instead of these quick snapshot depictions or pursuits with people that you've never met before in your life. And it's like, obviously there is a benefit to increasing the opportunities of relationships. You also kind of increased, with that came a lot of short-term norms, was a little bit of Pandora's box, because now you've set a new precedent of judge each other or grade each other on aesthetic and aesthetic only. We don't even care who we are anymore, And as long as we behave like the thing that's liked, then we will be relationally successful. But for how long? Short-term only? Yeah, very highly likely, because you're not going to be able to fool someone long enough in a long-term relationship where the shit actually matters. And so it seems like everybody just doesn't even get that far, and they wonder why there's so many relationships that just fall off eventually. And yeah.
Do you believe Bonnie has the right to make the choices she's making?
I believe you do, she does, I do, we all do, as long as it's legal.
Then it's impossible to have any kind of problem with it, surely.
I think you can have an opinion on it.
You just tried to cul-de-sac me there, didn't you, Andrew?
No, the point I'm making is the same people who are going to sit and say what Bonnie's doing is wrong and she shouldn't be allowed to do it are also the same people who say women should be allowed to vote. It's one or the other. Either women do not have the ability to make their own decisions, or they do.
See, if I cared enough about what was going off, or think I could change it by voting,
but you can't.
So yeah, I don't bother looking in the news or anything like that.
Of course.
And also, why
but you're
should I look at the
confusing me,
news?
because you say you don't give a fuck about anything on the world and it's just about you, but then you're trying to promote that you're a great role model for men.
I care about men's mental health, and I care about draining their balls and having.
If you're performing in the way that you are, no, shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Come on, we ain't gonna buy this shit for a second. She's gonna end up flip flopping later on in life, with all kinds of things. This is the personality that she's being right now. Let's be real. Now, when it comes down to accepting the idea of personal autonomy and how women and men behave differently, you can't. That's a tough conversation. And the reason why that's a tough conversation is because, yes, if you're going to listen to one woman's perspective and then demonize another woman's perspective, you're still living with the concept of accepting a version of the feminine perspective. So therefore, you should be accepting all feminine perspectives. And I think that's Andrew Tate's point. Yet again, a bit extreme. Just because you listen to one woman does not mean you listen to everybody else, or you even consider them as part of the conversation, because the autonomy is different when you've allowed the acceptance of one person in your life, one woman in your life, typically. And should that be your wife, or should that be the person that becomes your wife, this is the only person where you're going to let them have that say. That doesn't mean that translates to every other woman on the planet. Sure, if your wife is like every other woman on the planet, because not all women are the same, as much as he wants to portray that and make it easier for his argument to exist, it doesn't change the fact that should you be an admirable man, then it's highly likely that you're going to pick a at least better than average woman. And then with that, or a woman that is willing, right? And I guess better than average is a bad way of saying it. The kind of woman that you want to be looking for is a woman that is willing. And should she be willing, then she's already better than average on its own, without trying to measure aesthetic or personality or some other bullshit with one woman against another. And so I think it's a bit extreme to say that just because the one woman that you've selected in your life to participate in the route that you're going on and the way that you're going to live, or that is going to be the mother of your children, I think that's a little different than saying you're going to also accept every other woman's opinion in the world in general. It's like, no, I made this specific decision for this woman because she seemed the most admirable or most willing to be cohesive in a relationship. Maybe it was on the basis of traditional gender roles, and that was something that she believed in as well. And so now we're going to cultivate something and live on a cohesive plane of existence where we're going to now push further into our lives and secure and succeed in different ways. That's not to say that she is now the same as every other woman. It's a bit of a faulty argument, and I know what he's doing, but I think the second that this is brought to someone that can kind of pick that apart, it's just not going to look as attractive as an argument. Now, I'm not trying to bash on Andrew in its entirety. I know what he's doing. And sometimes you have to overgeneralize and you have to do these things, these extremes to be able to form your argument. But it just seems like in this podcast so far, there's no like pushback. And so none of it really gets filtered out or questioned. And I think that that's kind of what you're seeing here.
Women can't change the world, Rob. Let's look at this. Let's take this away from Bonnie for a second.
But haven't you said that feminism's just like taken over?
Feminism was given to women by men. Men are the only ones who can project force, Rob. Feminism is a male movement. Do you think if women march around in the street outside, anybody gives a f***? The only reason they get away with it is because men stand around them with guns. If women really wanted to fight the patriarchy, and they don't, trust me, the reason they say they want to fight the patriarchy is because the patriarchy doesn't fight back. If it became a real fight, patriarchy versus women, it would last 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And when the riot horses start storming in with the batons, women would very quickly get back in the kitchen. So there's no such thing as female power. It's given to them by men. And it's given to them by subsects of men who are actually trying to damage masculinity. It's very interesting. Imagine it this way. Every single man out there is fucked, and every single man out there has a past. So every single man out there can have all of his exes contacted and find the Jezebels who want money and can be attacked. So why does it only happen to some men? Well, women are the conduit for attack, and the different groups of men decide to use women as a conduit to attack their enemies. Feminism is a group of men using women against other men. That's all it is. Women are the tools, and women are the symptoms.
That's okay. So that's a little bit of a long shot, considering that the root of feminism was in order to tax or double tax the household or the same household. Now, he does have a point with the violence portrayed to men by women. It seems to me, and this might be anecdotal, I don't care if it is, but why is it that women are more likely to be violent towards men instead of other women? Like when it comes down to women, it just seems like they're less selective about that violence. But when it comes down to punching a man, hitting a man, it's just far more likely. And I think that there's a version of taming a man's presence that has happened over the years to the point where a man's power or capability of power is lost on the perspective of women. Like he can't just turn up on you, pummel you, and kill you in that moment. And I think that in this case, one, because men have the societal norm that they can just take it and they can endure everything without any repercussion, any reaction, because that's what men are taught to do. Hey, don't lay your hands on a woman. Okay. What happens when that woman is berating you and slapping you and punching you in the face? We need to understand that the concept of not putting your hands on a woman was to not be tyrannically abusive. It wasn't in the basis of self-defense. It was don't lay your hands on a woman, which came from the concept of don't be abusive in your household. Don't be a monster in your household. If the woman is monstrous, you're no longer the monster, regardless of what society may view you as. The whole concept of don't put your hands on a woman was the basis of don't be that abusive husband. Don't be that monstrous boyfriend. Don't be these things. And everything will be fine because you are now exercising an ability of control over your power in that relationship. Now, the saying was never oriented towards women that are monstrous, women that are violent. That's not what the saying was for. The saying was for wives in your home. The saying was for girlfriends or your significant others. That's who the saying was for. I'm not trying to say that men should just go out there and beat random women. That's not what I'm saying either. But my point is that I don't think anyone should enact violence and not expect a consequence. I get that there's people out there or men out there that said they can get pummeled in the face and still not react. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying to swing on women, but I will restrain them. And I will stop whatever violence is currently happening at the time. So to say that I'm supposed to sit there and take it, no, you're wrong. I think every action has a consequence. And whatever action that you decide to partake in, you need to be fully aware of the consequences that you will now be held accountable for. And I think that when we allow women to do whatever they want, there's an obvious reason as to why women aren't afraid of any kind of repercussions should they physically assault men. It's this crazy mix of double standards and this crazy mix of all kinds of traditional weaponized themes and phrases that are still being used in the time of today, but it's also not being used by traditional people. And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing is like we see these mixes of these kind of people do this. It's not a good look. If you guys know what I'm talking about, hit me in the comments below because there's just so many stories out there. There's also the study in marriages where women are far likely to physically assault their husbands. It's crazy.
Women can't change society. Bonnie can't change anything. So she is a symptom of society. And what I'm saying is, unless you're prepared to stand up and say the entire society needs rewiring, women shouldn't be allowed to vote anymore. Women should not be having sex outside of wedlock. Unless you're going to start saying all of these things, you shouldn't have an opinion on Bonnie. Your opinion on Bonnie should be, she is the end result of the society we have built and promoted. She is acting how society has told her to act to get as far ahead as possible. She is being extremely successful financially. She's notorious. She's sitting with one of the most famous men on the planet. She's done a fantastic job for herself, built on the parameters that we've given her to live within.
You're not answering the intimate portion of that conversation where it's like, yeah, here's society. Sure. What about the household? I think we're going back to the same argument a little bit where although men are picking women for their relationships, they're not picking Bonnie Blue for their households or to mother their children. So that at the end of the day, that's kind of what I'm seeing here. We're going from the small scope to the big scope as conveniently as possible throughout this conversation. And let's go.
Yeah.
Here's the rules of the game. She's played the game the best. If you're unhappy with what she's doing, change the rules of the game. But when men sit here and go, no, women should vote. And yeah, I listen to my wife and I listen to her opinions and me and my wife are best friends and I love what women think, but Bonnie shouldn't do that. That's hypocritical and stupid. That's dumb. All women
I think it's a little stupid that you can't tell the difference between what you have in your household and what society presents. That's what I think is stupid. So that basically means when you're combining everything, that means that you're so detached from your own household that you view your household similarly to the society, not realizing your household can be your own personal depiction of society should you be a dominant or a more masculine and admirable presence within the basis of your home. Where's that at? But of course, someone who's only around 1 hour a week, for all of their kids. I mean, I can imagine why that presence probably isn't worth remembering. But I guess this is kind of the point when you listen to Andrew Tate. You got some good and you got some bad and you got some admirable stuff and you got some terrible off the wall shit that's just so disconnected that it's not actually relatable to the way that he's navigating this conversation.
How would God judge Bonnie Blue?
Well,
if God existed.
Arguing about God and whether he exists or not is a completely different topic.
That's not a conversation that I feel like he's very strong on either. I don't think you don't want to bring that into this conversation because it's going to dismantle his approach in many aspects. So,
But, I mean, the holy books have a whole bunch of lessons to be learned. And I would argue that one of the primary objectives of religion, all religions, since the dawn of time, has been trying to protect society from female sexuality, because female sexuality is unchecked, unlike male sexuality. Female sexuality, if it goes unchecked, results in some degree of chaos. All religions are telling women not to be overly sexual for.
Is it female sexuality or female impulse? I think that a lot of the orientation around the Bible's focus is about female impulse, not sexuality per se, even though that's a big proponent too, but I think it's because sexuality is tied to the impulse. So I think that's a little bit of a subcategory of impulse, but I think the deriving factor from a lot of religious texts is to be mindful of the feminine impulse.
reason, because they know how society ends. That's why I said earlier we're in the end times. So how would God judge Bonnie? I don't know. Would he judge her? Or would he judge the society which created her? I'm not sure. But a society of absolute promiscuity leads to a whole bunch of problems that come later down the line, because men lose vested interest in the society with the promiscuity. If there's a kid that exists, and I'm sure he's mine, I have a vested interest. But if that woman's promiscuous and I'm not 100% sure that child is mine or not, then I have a less of a vested interest. And yeah, there's DNA tests and there's certain things. But before modern science, there was none of that. The only thing that gave me a vested interest in the child or the woman was the fact that my paternity was secured and it was guaranteed. And it was guaranteed through sexual exclusivity, which is why we've tried very hard to counter promiscuity for so long. Because men lose all interest in family, by extension, all interest in society, when we do not have guaranteed paternity.
So he brought up a very good point. I'm going to discuss it really quickly. Regardless of DNA test or not, even if a DNA test came back and proved that a child is yours, if a woman has proven to be promiscuous throughout your relationship or at any point, it doesn't even matter what the DNA test says. Men will still be cautious of their paternity with that woman because our biological instincts are kicking in to ensure our paternity. It is an animal in itself when you see what should a man accept any form of promiscuity from the woman that he's with. I think that at the end of the day, you're accepting what you believe you can handle. What's crazy is how women are completely disconnected from the significance of paternity for men because they view sexual interaction and parenthood differently. It's completely disconnected. And it's not even the sense that they don't understand. It's just that they're viewing it from a different perspective. Completely, because all they're saying, well, child and being compassionate to a child, and my concern is attachment, whereas the man's concern is authenticity. Is this his or not? And that's going to influence his involvement. Whereas a woman having a child doesn't matter because she is giving birth to the child. Who cares? The belief or the factual information that it is hers or not is irrelevant because it's automatic. So they immediately shift onto the concept or the significance of attachment. Whereas men don't do that. They don't know, or at least they would like to know that that's the case. And so now that we live in a society where we aren't always sure because of the way we live our lives and how overly sexualized everything is, there's so many studies that have some monstrous outcomes of men's concern or fear of having children.
Once again, who am I to tell society how to be? Because every single time I do, men try and put me in jail. The enemy of the world are not women or whores or the good girls or the bad girls, anything. The enemy of the world are the simps. It's simps that did all this shit. It's simpy ass men who listen to women's opinions who did all of this crap. And here we are. Simps did it. Simps are the most dangerous men on the planet. Simps are going to sit there and, like what I said earlier, if I message one of the guys who's marrying one of my exes now, he's going to simp over her, tell her how much he loves her, and pretend I'm the bad guy. For doing what? Sleeping with his wife when she wanted it? Simps are the enemy of the society, and simps have built all of this shit.
And a lot of them simps, I guess, are going to sleep with Bonnie, aren't they?
Well, they're all in love with her, and I don't blame them. Because fucking losers. No disrespect.
No, yeah, so I don't find him losers. Like, before I did judge him, like, before I spent hours and hours chatting to him and stuff, I think that's weird, or why have they requested that? But you know what? I'm saying not.
So you used to judge the men you slept with?
Until I actually educated myself on it. Yeah, and that's like most things. You judge things until you educate yourself.
And what have you learned about men sleeping with thousands of them?
That a lot of the time it's the women's fault. It's the women's fault. It's why they're in my queue. If they
you're still judging them to this day. It's just that you're looking for the reason as to why you were judging them. That doesn't mean that you solved your ability to judge them. Judging people is just so natural. The idea that we flee away from this term, how severe or how critical the judgment is based off you, whether you decide to enact that or act on it. But everyone judges everybody. Man, society is just so damn soft nowadays. And our inability to have opinions on anything is rough. It's rough out there. Judging is normal. Judging is natural. Judgment is in the Bible and it's in the religion. It's in plenty of religions for a reason. Judgment is necessary. Let's stop running from what is necessary just because we think judgment is synonymous to condemnation when it's not. We're not casting someone away because this is our judgment of them. We're casting it away because we disagree with how we've judged them. And that just means that we have this opinion and it's based off our own previous experiences, the information that we have at the time, and who we are at the time. Therefore, this is going to be the cognitively factual statement that we come up with at the time. This is how we see things. This is the perspective that we formed around this person. So this is what we think of you now. Are we going to tell you? No. But this is what's going to be held in reserve until you either prove it right or prove it wrong. Surprise, surprise. Guess what? Everyone does it. Welcome to being human. If you don't think you do it, you're full of shit. Everyone does it.
They just sucked him off that day. The balls were being drained and they wouldn't have come and given me a facial. The balls wasn't drained, therefore they was in my queue. And a lot of these men, it's not because they don't love their family, they don't love their wife and their kids. That's one thing. Having sex is separate.
True.
And also a lot of these men, it's just sex to them.
True.
They're not asking for an emotional connection. And a lot of them sometimes just feel lonely because the world lets them down in loads of ways. They're made to work. They're made to provide. They're made to look after the kids, still empty the dishes. Like, they're made to do so much and they feel lonely. They can't go and say to their wife, you know what, work was hard today. She'll bite back and say, oh, the kids kept me up. This happened. And, you know, they dropped their yogurt on the floor. They've always got something to complain about. Whereas I'm not that. I'm not like every other woman. They get to come to me and I'll listen to them. And I will.
Yeah, because you're not a person either, though. You're just an object. So, like, you're there for that, right? You're not even like a genuine human being at that point. You're just like this artificial existence to portray this part for the time being because that's useful to that person's situation at the time. That doesn't make it genuine or authentic.
Would you not say, though, Andrew, that's a weak man that's going to Bonnie?
I think men take what they can get. Do I blame men for taking what they can get? No. If there's a group of men around and there's a whole bunch of jizz, they should be too straight to pull that off. But one-on-one, if they can handle the time vortex, if they can get, a calculator and work it out, it is what it is. Sex used to result in children. That was the point of sex. And now we have the capability of having sex without children, which is a relatively new experiment. Yeah. And this also happens with homosexuality, with gay people, why they keep doing more and more deprived things, because sex gets boring after a while. It's like drugs, right? You take a little bit and then you need more and then you need more for more excitement all of the time.
Yeah.
So where the whole ends, I don't know. Maybe a lot of this is down to porn addictions or those kind of things. I'll be here and I'll state completely honestly, and I say this before God and before the cameras, I don't watch porn. I haven't watched a porn clip in 20 years. I don't watch porn. Really, I don't need to watch porn. I can barely get through my roster as it is. I ain't got time to be watching porn. I don't watch porn. I don't jerk off. I don't do any of that. I have too many females to service. I'm already behind. Like, I've got to hurry up on this podcast. Like, I got shit to do. So I don't do any of that stuff. But if you're jerking off the porn all day, every day, perhaps you're always trying to find something new to excite you. That's why you end up looking at midgets and whatever. And then perhaps the depravity is the exciting part of it. Like drugs or like anything else. What the fuck? But this is just an end result of having sex without the primary objective of having children. Because that should be the result of sex, is children. We've removed that now. So the point of sex is pleasure. But we all know that pleasure gets old and you have to constantly up the game and up the ante.
I think it depends on the basis of that pleasure. Not only that, but the orientation and what you're doing, who you're doing it with, that kind of thing. But I think that when people are desensitized, that's because they're over-sexualizing the act or pursuit in its entirety. So they're more likely to want to change it into something more and more and more and more, and then gravitate that towards some crazy themes, because they're obviously masking the biological pursuit with now a entertaining pursuit. And I think that they're trying to derive something from that pursuit that isn't the typical outcome. Because for men, the usual outcome is children. That's the outcome. But if that's not an outcome, there has to be a different outcome, or at least maybe that's the subconscious feature that's currently happening. So let's make it more extreme. Let's make it more crazy. Let's find some kind of fulfillment or short-term fulfillment by expanding what it can be. And I think that that's kind of what he got into when he talked about like midget porn and whatever direction that may be. And I think that's the kind of basis that we see with homosexuality. It's like it has to be drawn out to some extreme, or at least that's his pitch, I'm pretty sure, because there's no actual outcome. And a lot of people think, well, the moment shared is the outcome. It's like, no, not biologically. Biologically, the children are the outcome. That's the whole point of having that drive. Science. It is what it is. That form of desensitization, I think that's a monster in itself. And I think he glances over it a little bit, but That's the term. That's the magical term you see in all the studies.
I don't know. Do I blame the men for taking the free pussy when they have no other pussy on the table? Absolutely not. I don't blame them. Do I blame Bonnie for making a whole bunch of money off it? No. If I was unhappy with that exchange, would my problem be with Bonnie or the men? No. My problem would be with society as a whole.
Do you think Andrew's a good role model?
It depends which way you're looking at it. But yeah, everything he says.
Or how would you look at it?
Well, yeah, I guess. I think he is. I've heard clips before where you spoke about, and I think, God, I couldn't disagree more. But it's because I've looked at it out of context. Then when I've actually listened to the podcast and it's put in context, I'm like, he is completely right. So there's not many things, apart from him saying people are gay, I disagree with. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, that is true. It's factual. A lot of the time, we're not talking opinions. We're talking facts. Near enough everything we've spoken about today, when you talk about the past, the future, how it is, it's factual. You look on the news, everything we're saying is true. We're not here just saying, oh my God, I think this is vile. We're saying it's vile. Here's the stats. Here's the statistics to it. So you can disagree with it. We're not saying everything we agree with, but we're giving you the facts. You can't cry about that.
Right.
She didn't give any kind of example of what she agreed with. Am I tripping? That was just noise, wasn't it? It was just like fluff. I don't know.
How do you think people are going to take you being on this show with Bonnie Blue?
I don't know. I don't really know.
It's actually nice not being the hated, most hated person in the room for a change.
Well, I'm sure, yeah. And I think I'd be uncomfortable and unfamiliar with not being the most hated person in the room. But I don't really give a fuck how people take it, to be honest. I think people will understand that, it's entertaining. I think that this conversation's been very interesting. I don't know if people expected me to have a go at Bonnie or try and tell her what she's doing is wrong.
I've been called the female version of Andrew Tate
What?
for a long time
Why?
now. And I think just because I say women are lazy, they are poorly educated, they're not servicing their guy. And if you're not servicing your guy, he's going to go and cheat. And everyone's like,
I never heard that.
Sound like Andrew Tate. But it's like,
I never heard that.
I'm talking from experience.
But then again,
they're talking from full experience. And I'm saying, hey, these are the facts. I've slept with over 1,000 people and this is my experience.
But if you want a really intellectual conversation, if you want to really actually analyze society by and large, this false bullshit of male sexual exclusivity is actually creating most of the problems in the world today. When we say to women that a man should be loyal to only her, that's what's creating all of the divorces, all of the breakups, all of the women who run from man to man to man to man trying to find a loyal one. None of them are ever loyal. So then they end up just chasing the bag and chasing money and end up being sex workers, which is fine. But all of this comes from this bullshit idea that men have ever been sexually exclusive. Men have never been sexually exclusive. Women were to guarantee paternity. Men, since the dawn of time, every king, every sultan have had harems. They have had concubines. Every single man who could did. The men who can't say they wouldn't and say they don't want it because they can't. It's like a broke man saying he wouldn't drive a Ferrari. No one gives a what you think because you're.
That's not true. I think that he is talking about a specific demographic of men. The kings, the high status, or at least the representation of high status men throughout history, yes. They've always been able to secure multiple women, and then those women would be exclusive to him to ensure paternity. Fact, yes. It was the same basis where we go further back in history with strong men, multiple women. Yet again, fact. Now, when it comes down to the group of men that use morals as an excuse as to what they cannot achieve or do, is who he's talking about. He thinks he's talking about all men that aren't high status men. He's not. He's talking about the kind of men that use morals as a scapegoat to not do what they can't accomplish. You see this with a lot of people, a lot of boys, a lot of men who swear that they were going to commit violence on another human being, but then say, well, I don't want to get thrown in jail. It's like, no, it's because you're a coward and you weren't going to anyways. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of men out there that behave in that way. That they'll say, well, I could go get other women, but I'm trying to be loyal to you. It's just like, no, it's because you can't. Let's not live under this false pretense of morals when that's not your case, because what you're doing is discrediting the men that can, but actually believe in the moral. And I think that's in the same basis of women who are sexually assaulted and then women who feign sexual assault for the basis of status, money, outcome, guilt, whatever. And I think that that's the double argument there. You have women that are actual victims, and you have women that portray themselves as victims. And then on the other side, when reference to morals, you have men that are inadequate or they're feigning morals. And then you have men that are actually morally admirable. And what he's doing right now is shitting on both kinds of men, not realizing that there are men that are probably more admirable within him, but less financially successful. And I think that because he measures financial success as the only form of being admirable, he doesn't see it as a relevant point or statistic or something that's worth measuring. And so it's like, well, if you're not rich, then you can't compare to me, which is a shallow comparative analysis, which obviously is the outcome of social media and technology and how that's perceived. And so because he lives in that kind of immature perspective or that immature comparison, it's hard for him to see or gauge the morals of men that aren't as financially successful because he's not even allowing himself to look at those kind of men. So no, yes and no, right? There are men that use morals as an excuse. And there are men that actually believe in the morals they represent and they follow that shit to the T. And it's just that I feel like maybe that's alien to him in some cases, who knows, but that's not the case for all men. So you can't just be throwing that shit around.
Poor. If you're actually important and you can have a harem, you have a harem. They always have. So now we have this weird society where men are out here trying very hard to compete in the sexual marketplace, to become as important and rich and successful and well-known as possible because it's so hard to get a woman. When they finally pull that off, women are chasing him because women only want the top 1% of men. And then when a woman gets with him, she tells him, you can only be with me and no one else. And then he's like, okay, well, you've been with a whole bunch of men before me. You're not even a fucking virgin. You don't even listen to me. You don't shut up when I tell you to. So why the fuck am I going to only be with you? I'll be with 10 women just like you. You all have big mouths. So if I'll just be with all of you. And then she's like, oh my God, he cheated. And then she'll run away and just do the same thing again with another guy. And before you know it, after 20 bucks, she sits there and goes, why am I fucking for free? Let me just get paid out of this. So then she says, all right, she either becomes a sex worker honestly or becomes a sex worker dishonestly via rape charges and rape claims. That's what they do.
Oh, shit. It's tough to follow at times. It is tough to follow at times because it's just so all over the place. Because he's talking about if you're the kind of man that's choosing that kind of woman, what's wrong with you as a person if you're choosing those kind of women then? We talk on the basis of how the root stems from men. All right, this is a personal choice. If you're impulsively pursuing these women, you fucked up. You fucked up. Why are you choosing these women? Stop choosing these women. And then you're going to be able to live a better life for it because you're going to have a more conscious or involvement when it comes down to the partners that you select or whatever the case is, the relationships you pursue. But it just seems like all these choices are so impulsive that none of it's actually thought out with any kind of cognitive sense. So naturally, you come out with all these mistakes and accidents on the back end and all this things that blow up in your face because you didn't have the foresight to predict what kind of person that you're actually involving or investing yourself in to see that as an outcome. That's poor insight on you. You don't even know yourself enough to actually trust yourself with a good decision if you keep having these as outcomes. Then I think that's just part of growing up or being mature. And it's just lost on me that's just completely like over the head a bit. If you're in these decisions over and over again, at what point are you going to accept the responsibility that you fucked up? And at what point are you going to stop pointing the finger at the women that you pursue? What are we doing here, man? It's just, come on. Andrew Tate has a lot of points where it's genuine and authentic and it comes from a very sincere place. And then a lot of the other stuff, it just sounds like almost anger. Maybe it's because of personal experience. Maybe it's because of something else. I'm not too sure. But there's times where it makes sense and there's times where it gets like this and it's like, okay, well, I thought we were big on accountability. What happened?
If you're a woman who makes a claim against a man and you have an OnlyFans, you literally use sex to make money and you literally lie to men pretending to like them. And now you're doing the same thing in a courtroom. The court has become OnlyFans. The court's OnlyFans now. Nothing's different. A woman just gets her pussy and gets her tears or gets her lies, and she uses the court system to make money as opposed to using the OnlyFans.
That definitely happens, for sure.
I think
so you either have
probably a lot of
honest or
women-
dishonest sex workers. And all of this comes from the fact that we don't have a society where you say, a man at that stature is going to have 4 or 5 wives. Get over it. Life would be a lot simpler if we could. If women weren't brainwashed into believing they need a loyal man. A man is loyal to you when he puts up with you, protects you, and provides for you. If a man's paying your bills and will stop you getting attacked on the street and puts up with your emotions, that's loyal. Don't worry about where his dick goes. That's loyalty. He's shown you loyalty. And he can put his dick wherever he wants. That's actually loyalty.
What do you think about that?
See, I'm very different though, because I'm the one that does the income. They probably won't be working it, but the other way around, because women also want things to be different. So like, I'm not saying I agree with that. Like,
If ensuring paternity is the concern of the man, he has a point. Because to say that our depictions of loyalty or commitment is the same regardless of gender, they're not. And there's a little bit of truth to that argument there. So that's very interesting. And I'm kind of curious as to where that line of thinking can truly go, because I'm not too sure, but he has a point. Because a woman's loyalty is by ensuring his paternity. But that's not how men work. And so maybe y'all can kind of engage with that a little bit too. I'm not trying to say that everyone should have multiple wives, but there's a point there, right? Or at least, because what's the basis of a man's loyalty? It's to provide. It's to protect. Should he consider that woman be for that decision or not? Okay. Because what's going to isolate him to that woman besides the efficacy of the family and being able to demonstrate that in a holistic perspective, or at least apply himself in a holistic perspective, right? Unconditionally. And you can't do that when you're stretched across multiple families. That's why I put forth in the last video why that's difficult. But I think he does have a good point here that it's on the basis of women to be loyal sexually, whereas it's on the basis of men to be loyal financially, maybe physically, defensively. I don't know. That's something I think I gotta think about on my own time and to get back around to it.
I think if I was with a guy, they probably wouldn't work. I'd be the one to be in control, and I'd be the one fucking loads with the guys, and they'd be loyal to me. Things are different.
Yeah, she'd be bossing it because she has the money. She's doing the protection and provision because she's got the cash. But what I'm saying is,
that's a bad example.
The happiest women, let's look, and this is cultural. Like if you go to Russia and you meet a billionaire, you think he has one wife. I mean, he has his wife, of course, and he has his girlfriend. And his wife just keeps her eyes closed and doesn't care. And he gets to enjoy his girlfriends, and his wife gets to drive a G-Wagon, and everyone's happy. It's only in the West where she'll be like, I can't believe he wants to talk to another girl. It's stupid. And then women end up leaving men they love because he cheated, and then getting cheated on by a man they don't love. It's dumb. And it's just over and over and over again until they end up as sluts or old and used to the point where they can't get the quality of man they want. Then they're sitting around 36. I can't find a man who's, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. Because the guys you like are with 22-year-olds, my dear. And you had a guy who loved you and you fucked it up because you cried over him cheating like an idiot. Women, find a man you love. Let him cheat. Just tell him to only come home to you and only love you. Let him do what he has to do. Don't stress him too much. Have some kids. Drive a Bentley. That fixes society. But of course, if I say that, I'm a misogynist. I'm the worst man in the world. I deserve to go to jail.
If you said to that girl, go and work, go and earn your own money, go and do this, they don't want to do that either. So you've got to pick and choose. Like
when you tell women to go earn their own money,
that's not true.
One way or another, it ends up being sex work. You tell me you don't see these female fucking estate agents, whatever, in their little girl suit and their makeup and all pretty. Have you ever seen like one of these successful girl boss estate agents who's obese? I'm asking.
I haven't seen an obese female estate agent, no.
Have you seen obese women achieve anything financially? Or are there, because if you say no, then you're saying the women are judged on how they look. So all version of female work is sex work. That's the question. Can women do anything without being judged on the one thing they have, which is their sexuality?
I think you can be an obese comedian and make money.
Women
but then you'd be making jokes about the fact you're fat.
Yeah,
that's
and women
why
are
I find you funny.
Let's be honest, women aren't funny.
Aren't funny, did you say?
Of course not.
I think I've made you smile a few times.
Yeah, you've made me smile because I've been impressed by your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I've been impressed by how correctly you see society. But I think by and large, female comedians aren't really funny because humor is a masculine mating tactic. We have to make women laugh for them to like us, whereas women don't have to make us laugh. They have to be hot. Men fall in love with what they see. Women fall in love with what they hear, which is why women wear makeup. So we see something we like. And that's why men lie. So they hear something they like. Men lie. Every man on a date is a gangster and he's rich. You go, any girl go on a date with any guy. Women watching this, I know you've been on a date with some guy recently. He's got a few tattoos. He's got a sleeve and he's a gangster. He's a criminal and he's got all this money. And he's a fucking jackass. He's got like $6,000 in the bank and a rented car on finance. But he's just lying. He's trying to pretend he's the G, and, you know, you're going to fall for it. You're going to suck his dick, and then you're not even going to get paid out at the end of it. And then
He's still talking about that same stereotype women in these cities that he be going to. There is a performative difference between men and women. Well, you know, this is a good question as to why there's such a performative difference. I'm actually curious about that as well.
you're going to realize he's a loser, and you're going to go get another boyfriend. So you were just sex working for free like a fucking idiot. You just got tricked. You can't trick Bonnie. Bonnie gets paid. You can't trick Bonnie. Bonnie gets her money at the end. You're dumbass. You're sucking for free. Like a retard. So this is the world we live in now. So women are always judged on how they look, no matter what they do. Because to true biology, men are trying to find attractive women who can give them children, which is why we're attracted to women who are younger, because they're more likely to get pregnant. That's why attraction in and of itself, what is attraction? Attraction is health. When you look at a woman who looks healthy or has good genetics, because she'll give you strong offspring. That's why
The body shape, the hips, chest, it's just all, yeah.
attraction even is. So women are always going to use their attraction. Once a woman's obese and ugly, then she starts walking down the street screaming about a bunch of garbage because she knows she can't compete in the true market of sexual dynamics, which is men have power and women have attraction. That's how it works. So I just think it's completely hypocritical for us as a Western society. I think it's absolutely insane to have any kind of opinions on sex work or Bonnie or anything else when women are using their sex nonstop all the time. How is having an Instagram page and being an influencer and doing TikTok dances with massive silicone tits and doing this, then getting millions of views and unlimited money for dancing around with a tit dance? It's not even good. Not sex work. How is that not sex work? How is Instagram not
It's
sex
entertaining. It's
You're uploading your
comedian.
best photos. You want people to find you attractive.
You're
You're using your
filtering.
appeal.
Instagram
So
is a
stupid.
dating app. Women shouldn't be. If you're on
True.
Instagram, you're looking for male attention.
True.
You're uploading your best pictures with
True.
filters. You got your tits out in every photo. You're shaking your ass in every
I
photo.
agree. I
All
agree.
these fucking Instagram reels, all of TikTok, all of this. Look,
I mean, it's a little bit of a hot take, but I think that if you're in a relationship and you're with someone who is on all kinds of social media, I don't think that's a good move. That's just me. I think that when women have a constant view of technological influx of comparative analysis that often destroys women's perspective on their own relationship, you're not setting the grounds for anything genuine to exist within your relationship because it's too busy being invaded by external entities. So you can't really form anything on the basis of two people because you're too busy bringing everything else or the world into your relationship. And I think that there's plenty of studies that display how social media intervenes on genuine relationships. As much as you think that's controlling, as much as you think that's wrong, the science speaks for itself. The more social media that is involved, the less likely that relationship will be successful. Point is, it's a bad sign for a reason, and it's something to definitely consider should you personally have problems in your relationship. And I think that that's something that's worth addressing. And if that's not something that's being willing to let go of, well, then that's because that matters more than the man in that relationship. And if you're still okay with that, well, then you're accepting all kinds of shit later.
look at any of the famous women. How is all of it not sex work? You're advertising sex or you're making people want to fuck you for attention or money. It's all sex work. So we as a society say, yeah, an 18-year-old girl can get massive silicones and dance around on TikTok and get millions and millions of viewers, but she's an influencer. No, she is a sex object.
Yeah.
That's all she is.
They're the ones that walk down the street. That's what pisses me off. They walk down the street and then they cry that a guy's wolf whistled them. They crying that a guy's looked at their tits, that your tits are hanging out. I actually don't wear revealing clothing as such. I stay covered up. I don't feel like the need to show my tits. People can just see it, in person for free when I want to get naked. But I don't walk around looking like most of these other people do. Yeah, I am a slut. But they walk around crying about the fact people call them sluts. It's like, look at you.
Same in the gym.
Look in the mirror.
Same in the gym. They wear those tight gym clothes and complain that
Yep,
people look
all
at them.
intentional.
They're videoing themselves
It's
bending over
intentional.
going, oh my God, look at that guy.
So it's
I like it.
anti-sex work. So they do sex work and then complain they're being seen as sexual objects.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying, Rob? You know what I'm saying is true. I understand you don't want to go to jail, so you have to be careful how you reply. I understand, sir.
I'm just doing my job here.
You're just a commentator.
Andrew, if you go to
Interesting.
jail, I'll identify as a guy, so we can go in together.
All right, thank you.
Top and tail. I mean, you can be in me if you want. I just thought, we'd keep that bit of secret.
Bonnie, we're friends. You're my only female
Friends with benefits.
No benefits. I've never had a female friend in my life.
Yep.
I really don't have any female friends. I don't have a single female friend because I don't really talk to women unless
I just don't really like women.
They don't really have much I want to hear to say. So
when women talk a lot of the time, I'm there just smiling, thinking, you're so irrelevant in the nice way possible. The things you're saying, they aren't funny. Like, I think I am funny, but like when they speak, I'm like, you're really not funny. I'm having to laugh at this joke to be polite. I'm having to pretend you're interesting out of politeness. I'll have to pretend your stresses at work are relevant, but they're not. You just work for someone else that works for someone else. Like when I listen to other women talk, I'm like, you're boring me. It's not entertaining. And I can't listen to your issues because they're not issues. They're just, I don't know, just pathetic excuses.
Well, that's also because Bonnie Blue spends a lot of time listening to men's struggle. So when she sits there and listens to women's struggle, let's be real, the way that men and women interpret hardship is different. It's different. It's different. And I think that there's a lot of social norms that influence that because she's been exposed to this other side, regardless of what she does for a living. We know, but regardless of what she does for a living, it does expose her to something that she's not used to. And then in addition to that, I don't think it's because she's funny. And she thinks that because she gets a reaction, but I think it's because of how brazen she is, right? And how brash that she'll talk and discuss things that like catches men off guard because they're not used to it. And so maybe that causes some chuckles. I think that's why she probably thinks she's funny.
So Rob, let me ask you a question, sir. We have to make a decision. We are headed down the road we are traveling. Do we do an absolute 180 reversal of society and go back to traditional men in charge, patriarchal society where women have to obey their fathers and obey their future husbands, where they have to get married young, have children? Mm-hmm. Or do we continue down the path where every single woman decides to make as much money as possible using her sexuality like Bonnie does? These are the two options. They're the only options that exist. There is no in between. There is no smart answer. There is no Aikido. There is A or B, Rob. Do you want to remove the female vote? Or do you want your daughters and every other woman you know to end up like Bonnie Blue? Which one?
Well, I think both roads end
No,
the
don't
same.
try it.
Yeah.
But both end the same way.
Trying to trap them.
This is what?
Both end up back with patriarchy running society. When, what is it? Weak men
create hard times. Hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times, and good times create weak men.
And that is the cycle.
Absolutely.
And society is weak right now. And if you don't have strong leadership, you have government that starts to lead. And when government starts to lead and becomes too bloated and takes from society, in the end, society rebel. Even people who voted hardcore Labour and even people in Labour will turn on Labour soon enough.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
That's fair.
But I think things are going to get far more interesting before that happens.
Well, revolution. That's the only way you reset.
So that was part 2 of Bonnie Blue, Andrew Tate. And it kept on with the craziness. Obviously, measuring women's existence as sex work and sex work only was obviously a continued premise. If you haven't seen the first part, go ahead, check it out. It's a little bit of a long one, so take your time with it. Or just go to the end of the video and hear my thoughts as I summarize kind of some of the key points that I took away from the video. And it's because it's kind of what I do every time, but it's going to be what I do right now, which leads to the first point is Andrew brought forth a very, very good point. And I also have a point that combats his stances in some cases. But he brought forth a good point, man. The taming of the masculine presence. That's tough. That's tough. To see where men's ability to be powerful or forceful and then have that stripped away to just being a taxpayer because laws and society are biased or more oriented towards a privilege towards women. And so it really makes a lot of men feel like they're just there as a financial stability image for women to do whatever they want regardless. Because should their situation be brought to light, it seems like in most cases, women will be supported, whereas the man will be demonized in some way, shape, or form. So the second the man tries to implement any kind of authority within the realm of his own household, he's considered a tyrant out of nowhere, even though all those people deal with some form of authority or accepted authority in their own life, whether it's their job, whether it's their own personal belief, whether it's their politics. You're accepting some form of authority in your personal life regardless. So the idea that you want to judge or condemn some other person's version of authority in their household is bullshit. I don't think society has any right to dictate how someone's household is handled. Now, obviously, if they're breaking laws and the man is beating the wife or the wife is beating the husband or someone's beating children, then obviously that's a problem. But I think that society should stay the hell out of a man's household should he be trying to live a traditional lifestyle with a woman who is also choosing to have a traditional upbringing for their children. It has nothing to do with society. Society can shut the fuck up and stay the hell out of that person's household, because that is what matters to that man. Now, another point that counteracts a lot of Andrew's societal beliefs is the perspective of household versus society. Society in the world is going to keep turning and is going to keep twisting and keep all this shit is going to keep happening. The great and beautiful thing about your personal decisions is that your household does not have to reflect what society is. You can establish all kinds of traditions, or establish all kinds of forms of development, an environment, if you will, for your household to be your own personal representation of society. And should you bring your children up, and should you have a marriage within that household that resembles the traditions that you care for, the values that you care for, the characteristics that you care for or admire, then guess what? That's going to be what you present to society. The reason why so many people are fearful of what society can do or how powerful societal influence is, all they're saying is they're admitting their inability to be courageous against it. They're saying that society or the world is too cruel to this, to that. There's no way in hell that I can provide an environment that can counteract that or prepare my children to face that. That's not the case. And I beg and I plead for people to reconsider their ability to influence, or at least their ability to provide an incredible environment for the family that they could have in the future. All it starts with is your ability to be mature. All it starts with is your ability to find some kind of sense of being admirable for yourself should you make a good decision in the reference of the woman that you want to raise children with. And then you move forward on a cohesive existence with that woman should you guys come to the agreement in various forms of what kind of household you're going to have, regardless of what society brings to your doorstep. Doesn't matter what society is, doesn't matter what the world is. All you should be concerned with is what your household can provide. Because concerning yourself with society is yelling at the goddamn rain. You ain't going to change shit for nobody. And you're going to be stuck there yelling at the goddamn cloud saying, stop this and stop that. Shut the fuck up and worry about how you can react to it. Period. I'm not trying to be cruel or mean or inconsiderate to anybody. My point is, you have a power that you're not realizing for yourself. You have a power and a potential that you could easily manifest should you think for a second or envision your household for you and what that could look like. You can achieve that. And I promise you, should you do that, and should you be admirable and should you be consistent and hold yourself accountable every step of the way, you can reach that. You can establish that. Trust me. Your home is your home for a reason. The world is going to be what it is. Don't worry too much about what the world does. Worry about what you provide in reference to your home, because that's the representation of you that truly matters. Fuck what the world says. What society says. Fuck all these unnecessary, immature notions of judgment that they think matter. They're not in your home. You're not responsible for them. Therefore, you don't have to listen to their opinion. Simple. You have your own sanctuary. And I promise if you build that up, you're going to establish an environment for children that are going to be pretty resilient to the world. They might get influence from here and there. Sure. The world is vast. There's going to be a lot of experiences that happen out in the world that you can't replicate inside your own home until they're out there. But the best you can do is equip them and prepare them for that kind of journey for them to navigate themselves. And I think that's the beautiful thing that each person is capable of. That was obviously part 2. A lot of points He brought forth some that I just had to push back on. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. Any Andrew Tate fans might not like a lot of my perspective in this case, but it is what it is. Comment in the comment section down below for any of my takes on some of it. I would love to hear y'all thoughts. Let me know what you think about what I put forward. And as we navigate through the video, maybe we'll do a part 3. I kind of skimmed towards the end, and it's very repetitive. A lot of the rest of the video is really repetitive, so I might not, but still would love to hear y'all thoughts. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below. We can chat it out. I usually talk to damn near everybody unless you're just being a troll. But with that being said, thanks again, and I'll go ahead and see you next time.